Joe Biden called into Morning Joe to save his campaign, and I don't think it worked. We're gonna show you the highlights and lowlights from this morning. Also, he attended a black church in Philadelphia to save his campaign, and it didn't work. We'll show you all the highlights and lowlights from that visit there. And also, let me just put it this way: Joe Biden is desperately trying to save his campaign, and it's not working. And we're going to show it all to you coming up right now. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. We're live right now on Rumble. Thanks for joining us live. If you're there, I was monitoring the chat. There's some people who watch us across the Town Hall platforms at Twitchy, Town Hall, Hot Air, Red State, PJ Media. They've come and joined us live today because it's fun and people interact and they can comment. And sometimes the comments show up on screen. So if you're watching us elsewhere right now, not live, you're watching us live on X or watching us live on Facebook, come and join us at Rumble as well so you can participate in the live chat. And if you're watching afterwards, we really do appreciate you sharing these videos, liking and commenting. All of the numbers and stats are increasing across all platforms, and we need that right now as we head into the late summer and into this election season. We're making a difference, and it's because of what you have been able to do for us, and we really appreciate it. So Joe Biden decided, God, I got to save this thing. It's like a sinking ship. I went on George Stephanopoulos' little interview there. That didn't do the trick. People are leaving the sinking ship like rats. So how can I save it? How can I salvage it? What can I do? Oh, I've got an idea. Morning Joe on MSNBC. That'll fix everything. This is how it began.
Of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumptive. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
Okay, well, Mr. President, that leads to the letter that we just received a few minutes ago. And I'm curious, there's a part of it where you talk about the fact that you got 14 million votes, 87% of the vote. It was an open process.
They go on and on about this letter he just sent, basically reiterating. It's like last week on a tweet he put out on X, he said, let's just be clear. I'm the sitting president of the United States. You know, when you have to put that out on social media to remind everybody and be clear about the fact that you're president, you got a problem. And he does, in fact, have a problem. Did you see at the very beginning there? Mika Brzezinski, God bless her, she actually truthfully, accurately said that Joe Biden is now the presumptive nominee because that is accurate. He hasn't been confirmed by the convention, so he is the presumptive nominee, and he barks at her. He's like pissed off at her that she would say that. So this is how it begins with him yelling back at Mika.
United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumptive. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
All right, so a couple of things there. I'm more than the presumptive nominee. I'm the nominee. Okay, dude. But also watch Mika because as she's acting like her grandfather is called in. She's so excited and so happy throughout this entire interview. Keep an eye on Mika because it's puppy love, right? But watch also in a moment when the president starts talking, you're going to see her cock her head like she's having trouble hearing him. Watch. See this? Yeah. And then what's that? What are you saying? Did you see that? Did you see the little cock of the head? And it's because you can't understand half of what he says. And also, we got a lot of clips from this interview this morning because I know you didn't watch it because I know you don't watch MSNBC and certainly not Morning Joe. As this interview continues, I want you to notice something. Notice how Mika Brzezinski is so happy that Joe Biden is called in because she's a journalist, don't you know? But also notice that as these clips continue and we get later into the interview, Joe and Mika are shouting. They're acting like there is an old man who's hard of hearing in the room. Are you okay, Grandpa? Do you need anything? Can I get you a glass of water? It's that bad. And it's like, dude, you've got a microphone. But it's because he is so incomprehensible over the telephone. Also, by the way, the reason that they had him call in and do a telephone interview is because this way they can hand him notes and he can read them. All right, so take a look at this moment. Speaking of incomprehensible.
And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister, with the anyway. Look, the country, the rest of the world is looking, our allies are looking for U.S. leadership.
So he's trying to point out that he's meeting with the British Prime Minister, and he was going to go through a list. This is what Biden does all the time, right? What, are you kidding me? I did this or this or this or this, right? And then he does the list. But of course, when your brain doesn't function properly, you can't do the list. So he starts with the British Prime Minister, and then he malfunctions, and he can only basically get out because that's the commander-in-chief.
And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister, with the anyway. Look, the country, the rest of the world is looking, our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it in Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people of the nations around the world to deal with China, with Russia, with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that this president right now making the case to you that he should be president and making the case to Democrats that he should stay on the ticket. His entire case is NATO. I expanded NATO, which, by the way, was the purported reason that Vladimir Putin made a play on Ukraine because he was afraid that we were expanding NATO, even though we promised we wouldn't, and we were going to bring Ukraine into NATO. At the time, the Biden administration denied that. Now they're bragging about expanding NATO. But here's the bottom line. No matter how much you care about NATO or not, and I'm sure that we all care about NATO to a certain extent, but if you're trying to make the case right now to the American people why you should be elected president and to Democrats why you should stay on the ticket despite your mashed potato for brains, maybe you should have an argument better than I expanded NATO. Maybe you should talk about the economy and inflation and oil prices and gas prices and safety on the streets and taking care of the border and education. And, well, you can't talk about any of those things, can you? Okay, I guess NATO's all you've got. And then you can't even say, well, let's go to it again. Prime Minister of England and what?
I'm in contact with the new British Prime Minister, with the anyway.
I'm very excited about the visit to Washington this week of the British Prime Minister and he's fine. This interview was supposed to make everything better. How's that working out for you, Joe?
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities are wrong. And let me go through them. The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know which one you're responding to there. Zeke Emanuel, but they're saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward? These are pretty big names.
To go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think. They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave. They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have.
Now, that was actually kind of devastating as they laid out, and the graphics that MSNBC put out there of all of the publications and all of the thought leaders on the left who are calling him for step down. And the best thing that Joe Biden's got is, they're the elites. Dude, you've been a senator, vice president, and president for the last 50 plus years. You reek of elite, okay? And the elites, I mean, you're on with Joe and Mika on MSNBC. It doesn't get more elite than that. And this whole come on out here and watch me. Come on. Does he think that the New York Times and the Hill and then actually screw all of those things? Does he think you haven't been watching him? Does he think that I haven't been watching? Does he think that the American people have not been watching exactly? Do you think that we've just decided out of whole cloth? Oh, yeah, Biden's. I've just decided that Biden isn't capable anymore because he's got mashed potato for brains. No, we've been watching you. That's the problem. But he falls back on these same little catchphrases that he's got because he's got nothing else.
Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Look, I had before, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong. I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning that very night. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this.
It drives me nuts, people talking about this. I've been testing myself. I tested myself that very night. I was out till 2 in the morning. I thought he had a bad cold. What was he doing out there? Oh, that was the Waffle House visit, perhaps. You know, nothing good happens at a Waffle House at 2 in the morning. He's really angry that people are asking him if he's had any cognitive tests or any pre-Parkinson's. That's an interesting one. They're adding that to the mix now. Why are they asking if he's been tested for pre-Parkinson's or early onset Parkinson's? Because of this great article by John Levine, a journalist over at the New York Post. Good guy. I've known him for a while. He went and looked at the White House visitors logs, not of the foreign dignitaries or heads of mafia families in Kazakhstan or Ukraine and whether they visited so they could pay money under the table to Hunter and Jimmy and Joe Biden. No, that's old news. No. He looked to see who was visiting Kevin O'Connor, the president's personal physician in the White House. You see, when you fill in the White House visitor log, it's going to have your name, it's going to have the date and the time, and then it's going to say, who here in the White House are you visiting? And if you visited Kevin O'Connor, no relation, you can search that. And so John Levine searched that and found a name popping up multiple times. And that name, it turns out, is a Parkinson's specialist, a specialist in Parkinson's disease. That's the article in the New York Post. Kind of weird that no one else in the media picked up on it, but Mika sort of floated it there. You know, have you taken any cognitive tests, any mental acuity exams? How about pre-Parkinson's? Interesting that she just happened to throw that out there. But no, if you noticed in that answer, he didn't respond directly to the question. All he said was, I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well. But even that night, I went out till 2 in the morning. I test myself every day. Answer the question. Have you been tested for early onset Parkinson's? Didn't answer it. He didn't answer it at all. Well, the interview on Morning Joe continued. And Joe and Mika continued shouting louder and louder the questions to Joe Biden. And Joe Biden continued answering on the telephone in a semi-coherent manner.
I'm curious, is that an illusion?
Notice how he's shouting? I'm sorry. I gotta jump in there. He's shouting. Why is he shouting? He's got a microphone. Everybody's amplified. It's a studio. But notice how they shout the question. I just find it amusing that they just assume that Joe Biden can't hear them because he's falling apart. All right, go ahead. Shout away, Joe.
I'm curious, is that an allusion also to Donald Trump and the fact that Democrats, you believe, may now be doing the same thing that Donald Trump tried to do in 2020, and that is overthrow the popular will of Democratic voters?
Well, look, Joe, let me say it this way. The reason I've been out on the road so much all over the country, and while Trump is riding around in his golf cart, filling out his golf cart before he even hits the ball. But anyway, he hadn't been anywhere in 10 days. I've been all over the country.
Again with the golf. He's got a thing about Donald Trump golfing. What is with the golf thing? That was an attempted slam at Donald Trump, that Joe Biden's out there with the people all over the country, meeting people and voters while Donald Trump's just out there golfing. Frankly, it's bothering him that Donald Trump has been so quiet since the debate, that he's just chilling, that he's just letting Joe dangle there. It's driving him nuts, and I love it. That's why Trump should keep doing it. It's obviously gotten under his skin.
The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot, just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance.
And I just because it's just, I've been watching this guy since I was a child, at least since the 80s when he first ran for president. It's the same thing. I mean, he's been in, I want to rebuild the economy. First of all, why does it need to be rebuilt? Who broke it? Number one. Number two, so everybody gets a fair shot. It's this faux working class warfare crap that he's been spouting literally since the 80s. He still talks about trickle down and Ronald Reagan and all that, because it, I guess, worked then, but it never really worked because it was always been based on a lie. But at what point does anybody tap the guy on the shoulder and say, Joe, you've had nearly 6 decades. Clearly, you're incapable of doing what you claim you want to do, which is to give everyone a fair shot. People have a fair shot right now. If you would get off their back with taxes and regulation, it would be even fair. I'm sorry, I didn't need to jump in there because he just drives me nuts with the faux class warfare crap. He doesn't care about people. He never has.
Number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But then it is.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites who know so much more. Look at Joe and Mika right now. Mika Brzezinski's father was national security advisor under Jimmy Carter. She was born in Washington, D.C. She was born as an elite. She was actually the daughter of a cabinet secretary. Joe Scarborough is a former congressman. The two of them are on NBC News. Their audience is the only people who watch Morning Joe are people who live in Washington, D.C., Georgetown, to be specific, maybe some parts of Falls Church, Kalorama, that's where Barack Obama lives in D.C., and then the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It doesn't get more elite. He's talking to the elites in the audience and on the studio. Look at, even Mika can't even keep a straight face as he starts laughing. And then he's like, I'm not talking about you two. Yeah, because you two are just, you carry a lunch bucket into work. You got a hard hat. Well, Joe actually does look like he's wearing a hard hat, now that I think about it. This is such a lie. The people say I'm losing support amongst black voters. Just come with me. Come to the pre-planned, union-financed political events that I have every single day. I see plenty of black people there.
Guys, don't think I should run against me. Go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention.
Challenge me at the convention, he says. You think you can beat me? Run against me. Well, that's a challenge he might regret making, actually. But Joe went on. He kept shouting back at his friends, Joe and Mika.
I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quote, suckers and losers. I was with he called Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers.
All right, so hold on. So he tries to go into this whole thing about Trump lied. By the way, I just want to, screw you, Joe and Mika, for not immediately pivoting and saying, excuse me, sir, but you said that no American troops were lost on your watch as president. What do you say to the families of those 13 service members who died because of your failed policies? Screw you, Joe. Screw you, Mika. Screw you, George Stephanopoulos, who lets Joe Biden get away with this bull saying that Trump lies,
I'm reading from the list.
Trump lies, Trump lies, Trump lies, and yet you never stop and say, speaking of lies, could you please address the fact that you claim that no troops were lost on your watch? Because there are parents and wives and children of 13 service members right now without a father or husband to come home to. Lie. I'll tell you about lie. But anyway, then he tries to do the suckers and losers thing that has been debunked. It's 6 ways to Sunday. By people who were there. But here's the funny thing. As he says, Trump lies. Listen to him. Doesn't it sound like he's claiming that he was there when Trump said the suckers and losers thing that Trump never said? Listen to it again. He's lying about the lie.
I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quote, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called the Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers.
I was with him? I was with him when he called them suckers? Is that what he's claiming now? No pushback, no challenge. Complete and total acceptance from these. This is why he goes out. Think about this. Listen, Joe Biden wants to prove to the American people, and even more importantly, the power plays in the Democrat Party and the big funders in the Democrat Party, that he's fine. He's completely with it. He can handle anything. So what does he do? He goes on an edited George Stephanopoulos interview where George Stephanopoulos, literally his job is to run cover, PR, and damage control for left-wing Democrats. That's what he's always done, whether he worked for Bill Clinton in the White House doing it or whether he works for ABC News and does it. That's what he does. He's a political operative. He's a hack. So he goes on that and he can't do it. Now he goes on Joe and Mika. You really want to prove that you've got it together and you can fight, go on Brett Baer, go on Shannon Breen, go on, sit down with Tucker Carlson, sit down with me. That he won't do. He goes into the friendliest territories, and even then he falls apart. Even then he can't do it. Even then he's incoherent. Here he is. He's able to actually read the notes that God knows 3 or 4 advisors are handing him at any given time, and he still can't handle it. All right. One last little montage of the low points of today's Morning Joe so you can get a good idea of exactly how bad this was.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I not only believe that from the beginning, but I wanted to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on Faith That Can Intervene on your way to go to work tomorrow? I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do, but I'm making those decisions.
All right. I found it interesting that his last statement there was that I'm making the decisions because there is some suggestion that people other than Joe Biden are making the decisions in the White House right now. And, well, it's understandable to think that's the case. When asked, how can you assure the American people this won't happen again? His answer basically was, I can't. And that sort of really is the bottom line of where we are right now. Frankly, I find it despicable that the entire conversation, that the elites, that Joe and Mika and the higher-ups at the Democratic Party, the entire framing of their discussion right now is whether Joe Biden should step down from the ticket or not, because they're afraid of losing. They're afraid of losing the White House to Donald Trump, and they're afraid of losing down ticket in the House and in the Senate, and even gubernatorial and further down the ticket right now. That's where the pressure is coming from right now, and everything is about whether they win or lose in November. And at no point does anybody step up from the Democrats and say, hey, maybe we've got something more important going on here than just the election in November. He's president of the United States. He doesn't even remember if he watched a replay of the debate over the last 7 days or not. He can't put a sentence together. He can't remember people's names. Maybe the American people deserve a fully functioning commander-in-chief right now. This is a man who can order our men and women in the military into harm's way on a whim. And all we care about is whether he can beat Donald Trump? How about we care about whether we actually have a functioning head of the executive branch of our federal government? I mean, if you're Putin right now, if you're Xi, if you're the Ayatollah in Iran, and you want to do some harm to this country, don't you think they're watching what's going on? I want to ask you about your retirement plans right now. Can your savings weather an economic storm? Think about what you put away for the future. Inflation can render cash worthless. We've seen that under this president. Real estate can crash like in 2008. Remember? That was ugly. Economies built on a mountain of debt can fall like a house of cards, but there are very few physical assets you can invest in that can stand the test of time. Gold happens to be one of them. That's right. Gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia. It's why people are flocking to it now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold can convert a retirement account into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part is you don't pay a penny out of pocket. These are existing accounts you already have. They just get converted into gold. To learn more, text my name, Larry, to 989898. Claim a free info kit on gold. It's yours. It's waiting for you. You just got to text my name, LARRY, to 989898. Call the people I trust. Birch Gold. Secure your savings today. Scott Jennings, who is like the only non-left-wing Democrat they allow on the air. And boy, I don't know what they were thinking, because this guy has been a powerhouse recently. He has so come into his own. And you know that when CNN picks a Republican to come on the air, they try to pick a patsy, right? Because they want a one-sided conversation, but they got to have a fig leaf. You know, they got to say, well, we let the other side talk, right? So here he was on a panel. It's typical, 3-on-1, including a sitting Congresswoman, Debbie Dingell, the host of the panel, Dana Bash, and Scott Jennings. Well, take a look and see how he holds his own. It's a great clip.
But I got to say this. We got to stop talking about this. We spent a whole week. Republicans are having a great time. I mean, we need to get back to talking about Donald Trump and his performance and all the issues that are at stake and the contrast. This has been.
I agree.
How
can we stop talking about it? It's only the commander-in-chief of the United States we're talking about. He's not just a candidate.
Which is why we need to be talking about Donald Trump and all the things that he's done and how he wants to be a dictator and how he wants to thinks Roe versus Wade is the greatest thing that he ever did. How he wants to give your billionaire tax friends a tax cut. And thinks January 6th was a great thing.
You give me too much credit. I wish I had some billionaire friends. You got colleagues, public and private, who want Joe Biden to step down. You've got a lot of colleagues in your conference who want him to get out of the way. And what they're really saying is, we don't have confidence in him to lead for the next 4 years, which really means they don't have confidence in him to lead today. This is not a campaign problem. This is a White House problem. There are real questions about whether he's acting independently. He said, by the way, in his interview with Stephanopoulos the other night, he wanted to do 3 things: restore decency. Now he's got Hunter Biden running the White House senior staff meetings. He said he wanted to do something for the middle class.
For Hunter Biden's not running the White House.
That's crazy, Scott. I'm sorry. I'm just reading the journalism. I'm pro-journalist here. I'm reading the journalism about Hunter Biden running the ship here. He said he wanted to help the middle class. They're being ravaged by record inflation. And he said he wanted to unite the country. And he is the most divisive, unpopular president in the modern era. He has failed by his own standards, and now his own party is petrified that you're headed for a historic wipeout in the fall. Now, I think they're dug in like Alabama ticks. I don't think this family's going anywhere, even as Democrats want him to get out of the way, because they know what's coming.
Let me bring Shermichael in here. I know you.
He's dug in like Alabama ticks. I love that. He's from Kentucky too, but he threw a little bit down to Alabama. Did you notice Dana Bash there? Having to come in and do damage control because the other 2 Democrats on the panel aren't good enough to go after Jennings. So then the moderator, Dana Bash, has to jump into Hunter Biden's not running meetings in the White House. Now, there are actual reports that Hunter Biden is sitting in on meetings in the White House, and things are being cleared through Hunter Biden right now. That would be convicted felon, admitted crackhead Hunter Biden. He's in the White House right now, and he is participating as a senior advisor to the president. Jennings was absolutely correct there. And let's reflect on some of the things that Scott Jennings was just commenting on in such a brilliant fashion. A little bit of a reflection on that disaster of an interview with George Stephanopoulos. Again, just like the interview with Mika and Joe this morning, this was supposed to fix things. This is supposed to make everything better. Here's Joe Biden fixing things.
Part of it is what I said when I ran was I want to do 3 things: restore some decency to the office, restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics, go from the middle out and the bottom up, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that work over?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, because George's response obviously should have been, well, if those are the three things you tried to do, you failed miserably. Decency back to the White House? You mean with the transgender topless dude running around with his bare boobs flopping around everywhere? And a packet of cocaine found right outside the Situation Room, and your son Hunter, a convicted felon, now participating in White House meetings? Is that how you're restoring decency to the White House, dude? How about your Deputy Secretary of Energy, the transgender bald dude who stole women's clothing from a suitcase? Can I go on and on here? Yes, I can. Decency to the White House? Something but indecency in the White House right now. There's no class there. Bring the people together and unite our broken nation. Give me a break. He's more divisive than anybody else. So instead, but that's exactly what, by the way, Scott Jennings was referring to. And he has been a miserable failure. George Stephanopoulos' response to all of that, though, this is what George's response is.
For the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night, bad run.
George, I know you've been so courageous and such a absolute champion for our country, but what does it cost you? Are you serious? Like I said, George Stephanopoulos' job is to do damage control for Democrats. That's not the appropriate question to ask. Here's a little bit more from that interview.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
Okay, real fast. There's a little bit more to this, but you notice how he keeps talking in past tense, that he had a cold. He felt really bad. He was sick. And of course, since then, this was taped, on Friday. So that would be July 5th. Since then, he's done many political appearances, the one infamous one at the Waffle House, but he went to a couple of campaign headquarters. He was in Wisconsin for a rally. He's hugging people. He's shaking hands. He's hugging everybody except that one little poor black girl who was hoping to get a hug, but he ignored the black woman and hugged all of the white people, the old white people, right? Because he's like, looks at the black girl. He's like, oh, I got your vote already. I can take you for granted. You're black. And then he moves on because that's who Joe Biden is. That's who he's always been. He's a Democrat. Anyway, this whole thing about, I was sick, but now I'm fine. That's why I'm sitting with you. That's why I'm hugging people on the rope line and giving them kisses and everything's fine, right? Do you hear his voice? See, they all told us he had a cold 45 minutes into the debate because everybody was commenting on how raspy and incomprehensible he was and how we couldn't understand what he was saying. And he had this sort of the really weak sounding voice with the Do you hear what we're getting from him here? What do you mean past tense? If that voice was an indication of your cold, what's going on with your voice right now? Unless the raspy voice is actually an indication of something else. It's an indication that he is a weak, feeble, debilitated old man who is losing the power of his lungs and vocal cords, or hear me out, just to be charitable, maybe it's not his physical state and his age that's doing it. Maybe it's the side effect of a very strong prescription medication that he's taking to mitigate whatever else is going on in his brain and in his body. Either way, we deserve to know, because we were told last time when he had the raspy voice, it was because he had a cold. And now he's got the exact same voice. It's just the exact same Joe Biden we saw at the debate. There's no difference except they got better makeup on him and a better camera angle.
And did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did. No.
All right. I know I interrupt too much, but seriously, I don't think I did. This is 7 days after the debate. Did you watch the debate again? That's a yes or no question. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. I don't think I did. In other words, I can't remember. Joe Biden, the president of the United States, in an interview trying to assure everybody that he's just fine and there's nothing wrong with his memory or his mental capacity, cannot remember for sure whether he watched a replay of a debate that he was in over the course of the last 7 days. I want you to think about that for a minute. Do you know anyone in your life who is of sound mind who would have to give the exact same answer? Anyone? Did you watch that? I don't think I did. Wouldn't you remember? It's broken. It's broken.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
All right, so that was a fascinating exchange, and again, another indication of George Stephanopoulos just there for damage control. I don't know why. Even people on, with my political proclivity has said, well, I got to hand it to George Stephanopoulos. He asked the tough questions. No, he did the bare minimum. He did less than the bare minimum. No follow-ups, no pushback, no challenges to Joe Biden on any of the objectionable things that he said, or the lies, or just the basic incoherence. But let's watch this last part together. Please tell me if I'm missing something here. The question from Stephanopoulos.
What I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
So the question is, what were you experiencing while you were engaged in the debate? Now, unless you are medicated, heavily medicated, you should be able to answer that question. So let's see his answer, because I want to remember, this is what happens on these interviews. You lose sight of what the question is when Biden, mashed potato for brain, starts rambling incoherently about God knows what and bounces back and forth like a freaking ping pong ball on meth, right? The question is, did you realize while the debate was going on how badly you were doing? Here's the answer.
Yeah, look, the whole way I prepared, nobody's fault, mine.
Now, that's something that the staff told him to do. Don't make it look like you're blaming other people, because that looks weak, and that means you're passing the buck. This is all your responsibility. This also comes on the heels of press reports that Jill and Hunter were blaming his staff, so that did not go over well. So now he's trying to clean that mess up. Right.
Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail.
Does anyone follow what that meant? I prepared like I would for the National Security Council or a foreign leader with explicit detail, which I guess, what does that mean? You were over-prepared? And by the way, this is another thing that they kept doing in the interview. Every single time he was challenged on his capabilities or his ability to continue to be president or run on the ticket, all he does is talk about foreign affairs. Foreign affairs, NATO, Ukraine, Putin, China, Asia. And you notice one thing that he never does? He never, ever, ever says, well, I got to be here for the American people, to help their way of life, to keep them freer, to figure out a way to get their economy, but he can't. First of all, he doesn't think of it because he doesn't care. He thinks that the job of being president is to fly off to Europe and hobnob with prime ministers. Okay, that's all he cares about. It's the trappings of the job, right? He doesn't realize that the job is right here at home. The job is protecting our borders instead of moving heaven and earth to do something about Ukraine's border. That's where his default position is constantly, NATO, China, Iran, whatever. And meanwhile, by the way, it's terrifying that that's his main focus because the whole place has gone to hell in a handbasket since he got there. We had relative peace and security before he became president. So, as Barack Obama famously said, never underestimate Joe Biden's ability to things up. And that's exactly what he's done. All right. So again, the question on the table is, did you realize at the time what a bad night you were having?
And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9 now, or whatever the hell it is.
Did you understand what that meant? I realized during the debate that the New York Times had me down 10 points before the debate, or 9 points. You see what's happening here, right? His brain is not functioning in a linear operative way. And at no point does George Stephanopoulos lean in and say, "Sir, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about." Do you understand what he's talking about? I'm not following him.
The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, no one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having...
And there's George jumping in to save him. Instead of saying, "Sir, you're all over the map here. I asked you a simple question. Could you give me the answer?" Instead, he jumps in to save him. And what's happening is Joe Biden is trying to remember all of the coaching he got before this interview. And he's just going to just verbal vomit all of it out. Lied 28 times. By the way, at no point did George Stephanopoulos say, "Could you give me one example of one of the lies that he told?" Which of Donald Trump's 28 lies really bothered you the most? He can't answer that. All right, let's move on. Because he said he had one bad night. It was just one bad night, everybody. It was just one bad night, but it's not going to happen again. Everything's fine. Well, it was revealed over the weekend that the president's advance team delivers to him cue cards, not just about what to say and who's in the room at any given event and reminders of what the schedule and agenda might be. No. They have to take pictures of the door he's supposed to walk in on. And look at the stage right here. It's at the note is walk to podium. I don't know, maybe it's me. But if I'm about to go on stage and there's a podium there, my instinct is that that's where I'm supposed to go. Or you know what else I could do? Right before I'm introduced, I could turn to the guy on and say, "Where do you want me to go? The podium? Okay, I got it, the podium." But no. This White House has to take a picture and in big, bold letters say, "Walk to podium." But he's fine, guys. He just had one bad night. Why are you getting so exercised about this? It was one bad night. And, the interview with George Stephanopoulos, it was just one bad interview. The Biden administration did point to some other interviews that he had, notably radio interviews in Philadelphia. Sure, the Stephanopoulos thing didn't go well and the debate didn't go well, but look at these great interviews he had in Philadelphia. Well, CNN had the two radio hosts from Philadelphia on to talk about those really stellar interviews that are being held up by the White House and the campaign as examples as to why Joe Biden is just fine. In fact, he's sharp as a tack. He's the most brilliant politician and leader that we've ever had the privilege of being around. So CNN wanted to know from those two radio hosts about those interviews. And, well, we learned something.
You each you asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House. But they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House, or did you have, or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview.
Yes.
Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
Okay. And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either view. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove the vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming.
The interviews were scripted. And the host, and by the way, good on that CNN host. They looked at both of the interviews and said, well, this is weird. They're asking the same questions. What are the odds that 2 hosts on 2 different radio stations would ask the same questions? And the odds are, well, 0 to none. They were scripted. And this radio host, I feel bad for her because she thinks she did something. She seems proud. Well, I approved the questions. Wait, that's not how this works, ma'am. I can tell you, I'm a radio host too, and I hate seeing another radio host get into trouble. It's just weird because our business can't afford. It's hard enough, let's just say. But she got herself into trouble by being a hack for Joe Biden and trusting the campaign and trusting the White House. I've interviewed President Trump multiple times during the campaign in 2016, while he was president, and post-presidency. Never, not once, ever, 0 times have I ever been told what questions to ask. Certainly not scripted questions. I can tell you the one thing that, and this is true with a lot of politicians when they're coming on specifically to promote an agenda, the one time that the White House under President Trump would ever give any guidance, as they say, to the radio interviewer, that would be me, they would say, listen, I know you want to ask a lot of questions. If you can make the first question or 2 about the tax cut, we would appreciate it. That's it. And by the way, you don't have to. That's her mistake. You don't have to do what they tell you to do. Right? You can say, yeah, sure, that's exactly what I'll do. And then you do your thing, right? But sure, you make it go, but you get to write the question. You get to ask the question you want to ask about the tax cut. So I'm told that Donald Trump is the fascist. He's the totalitarian. He's anti-First Amendment. He's anti-free press. And also I'm told that he's brain-addled, that he doesn't have it all together, that he's got cognitive decline. And yet, strangely, this would be a perfect time for people to come out and say, you know, the Trump White House scripted questions for us too, but no one's ever done that. Meanwhile, you've got journalists faking outrage that this happened with this radio host. Please, we've seen this. This has been going on for the entire presidency. Biden accidentally showed his cue card that had the question and answer from an LA Times journalist on it. All of this stuff is pre-scripted. You know how I know for sure that this happens all the time? Because Karine Jean-Pierre promised me it didn't.
And you are going to see him, continue to see him, having interviews. He's going to do ABC, as you know, with George Stephanopoulos, one of your colleagues. That's not scripted. And he has done more than 40 interviews that have not been scripted. Interviews do not have a script this year alone. So you'll see him out there engaging with the American people.
So she just said that he's going to be doing all these interviews and they're not scripted. And yet this interview was literally scripted. And it was a radio interview, by the way. So not only was the question scripted for the interviewer and the host, but the answer was also scripted because it's radio. He can read whatever they hand in front of him. And ironically, he screwed that up too. One last thing here, by the way, sad story. That radio host, that woman that you just saw from Philadelphia, her name is, wait for it. I feel bad, so I want to get her name right. Andrea Lawful Sanders, WURD. It's a Black-owned radio station in Philadelphia, talk station, WURD. Word. Get it? Yeah, Andrea Lawful Sanders tendered her resignation yesterday. But she didn't really resign. She was fired by the radio station because she violated their policies with regard to an interview. You're not supposed to do that. In fact, I want you to listen to I want to read for you a part of the statement that the radio station put out, because it's actually very good. The radio station said, and I quote, "This practice of delegitimizing Black voices continues today. WURD radio is not a mouthpiece for the Biden or any other administration. Internally, we will commit to reviewing our policies, procedures, and practices to reinforce WURD's independence and trust with our listeners. But mainstream media should do its own introspection to explore how they have lost the trust of so many Americans, Black Americans chief among them." Good for them. And I feel sorry for any radio host who gets fired there, but for the grace of God go I, but not really, because I would never do that. And anyone with any integrity would never do that. Even if you're rooting for the politician that you're interviewing, you can't do that. It's malpractice. And WRD is 100% right to call out the rest of mainstream media, because they have been bending over frontwards and backwards to help this guy out, because they hate Donald Trump and they hate you for supporting and voting for Donald Trump. And they're not really the press anymore or the media anymore. It's funny how you're not hearing a whole lot of journalists screaming with outrage, not at the radio host, but at the campaign and at the White House for even trying to do this and succeeding. Do you want to know why you're not seeing a lot of reporters outraged about this? Why the White House Correspondents Association hasn't said anything? Have any other journalists all over television haven't been saying much? Because they've done it too. That's why. Oh, and one other thing. There's a reason why this was a Black station that Joe Biden did this, because he assumed that they would roll over and do this for him. He assumed, he takes for granted the Black vote at every possible opportunity. Let's see how that works out for him this November. Speaking of taking the Black vote for granted, Joe Biden in Philadelphia decided to go to a Black church because, he's been telling us for years that this devout Catholic, when he's not actually going to Jewish synagogue or to a Puerto Rican Catholic church, he shows up at a Black church or whatever. I can't keep his stories straight. So he went to a Black church in Philadelphia this weekend. Take a look at the dramatic and inspiring moment when he walked in the doors. He looks so alert and engaged and with it, doesn't he? Dude, what are those pupils dilated to the size of saucers? Seriously, what is he been injected with? You know how Joe Biden is constantly wearing his Ray-Bans, even indoors sometimes. It's not because he looks cool. It's to cover up that vacant look in his eyes. As I show you these various clips from his visit to the Black church in Philadelphia, I want you to pay close attention to his eyes and the vacant, mouth agape expression that he constantly has. His eyes look like he's lost in somebody's headlights and he's searching the room for some handler to give him some hand signal about what he's supposed to be doing. And he's mouth breathing. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm pointing out what you will see for yourself. Here, take a look.
Let us stand together. Oh, at the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy.
I mean, that's just sad. Let us all stand And then the guy next to him stands. And now look at the panic in his eyes. Look at that. Should I get up? No, I'm not going to get up. Where's my person? This wasn't written on a card. I don't have a cue card in front of me. There's no picture of the chair. There's no picture of a podium. Where should I do? I'm just going to sit here and tap my All right, now she's standing up. What am I going to? All right, that's it. Screw it. I'm going to stand up. Oh, God, I hope I don't get into trouble. I hope Jill doesn't smack me again. That's your commander-in-chief. Then it was time for a prayer. And this pastor's prayer is absolutely remarkable. Can I just say, this is a moment where Joe Biden is supposed to be sort of, thankful that this guy is praying for him. He's a man of the cloth, after all. Let's see how the prayer went. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna sing a little bit more first. I apologize. Then the prayer comes.
Anybody who's ever been discouraged, I don't feel no waste time. Oh, too far from where I started.
So you realize what's happened here is he was confused as to whether he should stand or not. So eventually he did stand. Now, as you can see, people have sat back down, but he doesn't know if it's okay for him to sit back down or not. So now, again, he's dazed, he's lost, he's confused. Look at his eyes, mouth breathing still, and he still can't figure out what the hell he's supposed to do. He's the president of the United States.
Oh, nobody told me that the road was easy. I don't believe.
All right, let's say he looks so natural and comfortable at a black church too, which is understandable. Now I believe that he's been going to a black church since he was a child, right? Doesn't he look comfortable to you? All right, let's go to the prayer. I think we could all use a conversation with the Lord right now, can't we?
I don't know why it is that you want to make an issue of the president and his condition with stammering and not being able at certain times to bring forth words, while another person lies fluently and you never challenge his lies.
This is a prayer? And I do love this. Like, he's supposed to be helping Joe out here. And he's like, hey, why do you want to make fun of the guy who's constantly stammering and searching for words and not able to put a coherent sentence together? It's like, wait, you're helping? You're helping right now? Oh, the shade. And then a slam against Donald Trump as a supposed liar. Could we check into the tax exempt status of this church real fast, by the way? Last I checked, if you're a 501c3 religious organization, you're not supposed to take sides in a political campaign. That seemed kind of partisan-y. But then this is my favorite part of the prayer. You're going to love this. Again, this is the pastor who's asking the Lord to help Joe Biden out. And listen to how that went.
A bumper sticker on a senior citizen's car that said, I may be slow, but I'm in front of you. Use our president. Use his experience. Use his handicaps. And be glorified in his life. In Jesus' name, let's receive our president, the president of the United States, President Joseph Biden.
I feel bad. This is not my ecclesial community. We pray differently in the church that I go to. I don't want to laugh when someone is asking for anything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, but I don't think this went exactly the way Joe Biden wanted it to go. Reverend, you're not helping. You're not helping, dude. Okay? Is this his own? I think the pastor's sort of subversively trying to help Kamala get on the ticket. I think that's what we're witnessing here. My favorite part here is when he says the whole thing about, I may be slow, but I'm in front of you. And Joe sort of looks up like saying, wait, that's not nice. I don't think that's helping me.
A bumper sticker on a senior citizen's car that said, I may be slow, but I'm in front of you. Use our president. Use his experience. Use his handicaps.
Use his handicaps. Oh, sure, he's dilapidated. Sure, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be polite. That's not the prayer you're looking for if you're Joe Biden and you're there at the church trying to reassure everybody that everything's fine. Oh, by the way, if that weren't enough, it's now time for Joe to jump up there to the podium that I'm sure was printed out on a card for him. And it's time now for Joe to speak for himself and to reassure everybody that he is sharp as a tack and at the top of his game. Because that's what all this is about. The interview with Stephanopoulos, the rally in Wisconsin, the meeting with campaign workers, the interviews that have been scripted, and then the appearance at the Black church in Philadelphia. It's all to send the same message. I had one bad night. Now I'm sharp as a tack, and I'm ready to go. Stop with all this doomsday discussions. You don't need Kamala on the ticket. I'm your man. So take it away, Joe. Prove to us that everything's fine.
And I want to thank you for, I said, Bishop, it's good to be home. Please sit down.
Well, I know I feel better. I am completely reassured. 4 more years. I think the Democrats should just stay the course. Their best chances with Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. He's going to do wonders. He's going to do wonders for all the Senate races too. Don't budge. Stay right where you are. I mean, who isn't reassured after this?
And I want to thank you for, I said, Bishop, it's good to be home.
There you go. It is good to be home in Philadelphia, even though he's never lived in Philadelphia in his life. He was born in Scranton and then moved to Delaware. But it's good to be home in Philadelphia. Although, speaking of Philadelphia, he did do a campaign appearance at one of those volunteer centers campaign headquarters. And he did say something curious about Philadelphia and his political career in Delaware. Again, he's the senator from Delaware. So here he is in Philadelphia.
But look, even when I was running for Senate, and each time I ran, quite frankly, not a joke, Philadelphia in particular got me across the line.
Philadelphia, Delaware. Last I checked, Philadelphia was in Pennsylvania. But Philadelphia is what helped Joe Biden get across the line when he was running for Senate in Delaware. Now, to be fair to the president, what he meant was, and he's going to elaborate here, he meant fundraising and organization out of Philadelphia, which, by the way, is telling in its own right. I'll let him sort of clean this mess up real fast.
No, I'm not joking. No, I mean it seriously. Organizationally, and in terms of fundraising, the whole deal. But look, here's the deal. This election is going to be about block and tackling, simple, basic politics. Simple. It's going to be a matter of how many signs we get out, how many doors we knock on, how many calls we make, and how many requests we answer.
Well, he's right about that last part, and you all better be volunteering and getting out there too, because that's what this election is going to be about in the long run. Well, and whether the giant multi-millionaire donors pull out all of their support from this guy. I mean, it is about door knocking, but really for him, it's about knocking on 4, maybe 5 doors. They're all in Hollywood, maybe one up in the Bay Area, one of the big tech guys, to make sure that they've still got the support from the rich tycoons that prop this man up. So organizational and fundraising out of Philadelphia, that's what's pushed him across the finish line in Delaware. That's Democrat politics for you. You know, I need to win in Delaware, so I'm going to go across the river to Philadelphia and raise money there from people who don't even live in my state. And I'm going to get organizational help from the unions there in Philadelphia that don't live or work in Delaware. But, you know, there's not enough money or union thugs in Delaware for me to really win this election. So I'm going to Philadelphia to get it. And then I'll be the senator from Delaware who will do whatever these people in Philadelphia want me to do. So in a way, Pennsylvania has had 3 senators all this time, including, by the way, I see Fetterman back there. And I like some of the things that Fetterman's been saying recently, but I don't know. I'm thinking that he's going to dump Kamala from the ticket and name Fetterman as his running mate. Think about it. Biden, Fetterman. It's a no-brainer. Thank you. I'm proud of myself for that one. All right. Also at this event, he told an odd story. This is Joe Biden off script, off teleprompter. He can take the microphone. You just be Joe. Let Joe be Joe. So he starts telling a very odd story about wanting to stop his motorcade at a moment's notice to get out and play with children in the playground. I'm not kidding.
But I'm not able to do what I used to do. I'd be riding down the street in the vehicle before and see a bunch of kids in the schoolyard waving. I'd stop and get out. Realistically, I can't do that anymore. It's just too dangerous what's going on out there.
Yeah, there's predators out there, and people might think I'm one of them. You know, I get out, I see kids on a playground, I start smelling their hair, and the next thing you know, they're making a big deal out of it. I can't do that anymore. It's sad. It's sad. It's really unfortunate. But, you know, he told a similar story at another event, a rally. I think this was also in Pennsylvania. Take a look. He starts again talking about interacting with children. We're going to watch it through once, and then we're going to go back and watch it because something really interesting happening during this one. But again, this is Joe, off script, off teleprompter. Let Joe be Joe. Prove to everyone that you're fine.
But I tell you what, after I went to a local parade, in a little place called Hocassin, Delaware, right on the Pennsylvania border after our son had passed. And I was sitting at home thinking it was his favorite parade. So I decided just to go into it. And I was walking along in this small community, and 4 guys about your size came running up to me. I thought the Secret Service was going to kill them. And when they came running up, swear to God, true story, said, Joe, what's all this damn stuff about Pennsylvania? You're from Delaware. You're from Delaware. Yeah, but it never leaves you.
I just don't understand what the hell he's talking about. But again, the whole story starts out with him going to a parade and wanting to talk to kids. Keep this man away from your kids, please. There's something really, really creepy about him in his fixation. But I told you we're going to watch it one more time because now that you know what he's talking about, sort of, I want you to keep an eye on Jill Biden. So you see Jill there off to the side. Jill's watching, and those are some people who are either working with the campaign locally, I'm guessing, or nationally. And Jill is starting to realize that Joe is beginning to ramble incoherently and that he's going off the rails. Nobody knows this better than Jill, right? So watch as she starts to rally support. It's like, well, we got to stop this. This is going from bad to worse. I need you to come with me. We're going to go take care of him. Will you come with me? Will you help me? Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's go. Can you help too? John Fetterman, come here. We got to fix this before it goes south. This is getting ugly. I've seen it before. I've seen it many times. There we go. And then we're going to fix it. She's running things. One last clip back at the church where the pastor completely insulted him. And please pray for this man and his stammer. Please pray for him being the old man driving slowly in front of you. Please pray that he can use his handicap to his advantage. And please pray that he gets off the ticket so that Kamala Harris can take his place. I want you to watch how the pastor there, who has just completely insulted him without Joe Biden even knowing, quietly ushers him.
America, land by I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night.
Yeah, just this way. I know you don't know how to get off the stage, so let me guide you, point you. It's that door right there, even though you just came in that door, but you can't figure it out on your own. Please get him out of here. We're done. It's over. Thank you very much. It's a very sad state of affairs. That's the last 3 days of the President of the United States fixing things and repairing the damage that was done at the debate. It's not good. Not good at all. I mean, if you're on Team Biden, can I make a prediction? Next week is the Republican National Convention. By Monday, President Trump will name his running mate. All of the narratives and all of the media attention will be on the running mate and on the president and the convention. All of the speeches, all of the video packages, so much of the messaging from everyone in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention will be about Joe Biden's debilitated state, Joe Biden's inability to be the president, Joe Biden's disastrous policies at the border and in the economy, Bidenomics, inflation. They're all ready to go to hammer Biden at the convention. Can I make a prediction? Either the day before the running mate is announced or the day that the running mate is announced, Joe Biden will make his announcement that he's stepping down from the ticket. They are going to try to suck all of the oxygen out of the room from the convention. They're going to try to step on the big news cycle that Trump and whoever his running mate is going to have, and they're going to try to throw a monkey wrench into the operations at the Republican National Convention because of all of the prepackaged video and all of the pre-written speeches that they already have about Joe Biden. They're going to try to change the narrative. They need to do something big and bold and drastic. And my prediction is convention week is when he will decide to step down. And I hope the geniuses at the Trump campaign are ready for that. I hope that they are producing videos about Kamala Harris. I hope they are writing speeches about Kamala Harris or the corruption at the Democratic Party. It doesn't matter who they put at the top of the ticket. They're all the same. They're all disasters. I hope they're ready to make that pivot because that's what they're going to try to do. It's just a hunch. Because if I were them, that's what I would do. You got to do something big. You got to do something bold. You got to change this around. Otherwise, this campaign, this election is going to be over before we hit the end of the month. All right, it's good to be back after the July 4th holiday. Thanks for all the support for the show. We are all out of time today, but we will be back next time. And in the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor. Please call me Larry.